Have you ever set a goal, poured your energy into it, felt yourself getting like incredibly close, and then right at the finish line, you suddenly find yourself procrastinating? Or maybe second-guessing everything? Or perhaps some emotional impulse just completely throws you off track? If you feel stuck in that cycle, almost there but never quite making it, this deep dive is going to help you break through.
Yeah, you've just hit on something really common, but also, well, perplexing. It's called self-sabotage. And basically, it boils down to behaviors, or sometimes just not doing things, that consistently undermine your own long-term goals, your well-being.
And it's often unconscious, right? Like you don't even realize you're doing it.
Exactly. Creeps into everything: careers, health, relationships, creative work, pretty much any area of life.
Okay, and here's what I find really fascinating, and I think you will too. Modern psychology obviously has a lot to say about this. But ancient Stoic philosophers, they were talking about almost the exact same things 2,000 years ago.
It's remarkable, isn't it?
So get ready. We're going deep today, offering a shortcut to understanding why we get in our own way, and more importantly, how you can actually stop doing it. Okay, let's try and unpack this then. Why do we do it? Why do we keep getting in our own way, often without even realizing it? What's happening under the surface?
Well, psychology points to a few key internal drivers. Things like fear, low self-esteem, definitely perfectionism, and sometimes just habits we've learned over time. It's a really profound human thing. The Roman thinker Seneca, he had this great line. He said, "One thing all fools have in common is that they're always preparing to live, but never actually living."
Wow, that hits hard. Sounds like procrastination personified.
Absolutely, a direct link, right?
Yeah.
That feeling of always getting ready, but never quite starting.
And sure, external stuff matters too, doesn't it? Like a messy workspace or maybe friends who aren't very supportive. That can make it harder.
Oh, for sure. Environment plays a role. But, and this is where it gets really interesting for you, the listener, a Stoic, would gently remind us, you only control your own choices, your responses.
Right. The external things influence us, but the power is in how we react.
Precisely. So our mission here in this deep dive is really to focus on what is in your control, your mindset, your emotions, your habits. Because if you understand those internal drivers, you can start to loosen their grip, really break their hold.
Okay, let's dive into the first big one then. Fear. The invisible barrier. This feels like a huge piece of the puzzle, like a silent puppet master.
It often is, yeah. Fear is primal. And one of the classic culprits in self-sabotage is fear of failure. You worry you won't succeed, maybe you'll disappoint people or yourself. So to avoid that potential pain.
You kind of fail on your own terms first.
Yeah.
By not really trying or missing the deadline.
Exactly. It feels safer somehow. Like that professional who keeps missing deadlines. Maybe they say it's lack of time, but underneath, often it's a fear of actually doing the task and maybe not measuring up.
Makes sense.
And then there's the flip side, which sounds weird, but it's real. The fear of success.
How does that work? Fear of success.
Well, you might worry, what if succeeding changes my life too much? What if my relationships change? Can I handle the pressure? So just when things are going well, you might subconsciously pull back, undermine things.
Wow. Or just fear of being judged if you put yourself out there.
Definitely. Fear of criticism is huge. So
Yeah.
you stay small, stay in the background, where
Yeah.
it feels, quote unquote, safe.
Oh, the Stoics really got this, didn't they?
They really did. Seneca wrote something like, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. He saw that we tend to imagine the absolute worst outcomes.
Which is basically catastrophic thinking, like modern psychology calls it.
Precisely. You imagine disaster, so taking any action feels way too risky. Think about like a writer who never finishes their book because they're terrified of bad reviews, or that talented employee who turns down a promotion.
Because of imposter syndrome, feeling like they don't deserve it.
Exactly. Fear whispers, stay put, don't risk it. If you don't truly commit, you can't truly fail.
That's so relatable. It's almost uncomfortable. Okay, so how do we actually fight back against these invisible fears when they feel so powerful?
It comes down to courage, but also clarity of mind. One really powerful Stoic technique is called premeditatio malorum.
Premeditation of evils. Sounds intense.
It does, but it's practical. You deliberately visualize the worst-case scenario. Like, okay, what if I do lose this job? A Stoic would say, okay, that's a setback. It's tough, but it's not the end of the world. By facing it in your mind.
It loses some of its power, makes it less terrifying.
Yes. It's actually similar to modern exposure therapy in a way. You realize you can probably handle it. And Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, he constantly told himself to just focus on the task at hand. Focus on what is in front of you. Doing the next right thing, basically. Not getting lost in what-ifs.
That feels more actionable.
Right. And think about Sarah Blakely, who founded Spanx. Her dad used to ask her at dinner, "What did you fail at this week?" Yeah. And he'd celebrate it. He taught her that the real failure was not trying. That perfectly aligns with Stoic thinking. Feel the fear, do it anyway. Because you'll regret not acting far more than you'll regret trying and maybe falling short.
Okay, that's a great perspective shift. Let's move to another really common one. Procrastination, that feeling of constantly putting things off. Even important things. It feels less like laziness and more like discomfort.
You nailed it. It is often about discomfort. Seneca, again, was blunt. Putting things off is the biggest waste of life. Psychologists define it as a voluntary delay of an intended action despite knowing it might harm us. That gap between I want to do this and actually doing it.
We plan to exercise or work on that side project or study, but then suddenly cleaning the fridge seems urgent.
Smiling slightly.
Yes.
Exactly. Or scrolling social media. Research shows it's tied heavily to emotion regulation. We delay tasks that make us feel anxious or uncertain.
And instead, we grab a quick mood boost from something easier.
Precisely. Procrastination offers that instant relief. But it's short-lived, right? And usually leads to more stress later. Perfectionism is a big fuel for it too. I'll start when I have the perfect plan, or when conditions are just right. Which means
Never.
pretty much. As Charles Dickens put it, procrastination is the thief of time, stealing from your future self.
Okay, how do we stop this thief? How do we break that cycle?
There's some really good practical tactics. First, just begin, imperfectly. Marcus Aurelius basically told himself, just get up and get to work. Modern advice like Mel Robbins' 5-second rule count, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and move, taps into the same idea.
Launch before you can talk yourself out of it.
Yes. Even a tiny start builds momentum. Second, break the task down. Big projects feel overwhelming. The Stoics knew great things are built from many small actions, like writing, a line at a time.
So instead of write the report, it's draft the introduction, or even just open the document.
Exactly. Make it bite-sized, concrete, manageable. Third, use commitment devices like structure your environment.
Commitment devices?
Yeah.
Like what?
Well, the famous story is Victor Hugo locking away all his nice clothes, leaving only a shawl, so he couldn't go out and would have to stay in and finish The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
That's extreme. But I see the point. Make it harder to get distracted.
Right. You can use website blockers, dedicate a specific workspace, or even just tell someone your goal to create accountability.
Okay, what else?
Fourth, and this is crucial, mind your emotions, but don't be ruled by them. Stoics emphasized reason over fleeting feelings. When you feel that urge to procrastinate because a task feels hard or boring, pause. Take a breath. Acknowledge the feeling, okay, I feel resistance. Then gently redirect your focus to the next tiny step.
So you tolerate the discomfort instead of running from it.
You train yourself to tolerate it, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, remember your why. Why did you set this goal in the first place? Reconnect with the deeper purpose. Is finishing that degree really important for your career goals? Does writing that book connect to a core value? That why can reignite motivation when things get tough.
That's really helpful. Okay, let's tackle something that sounds good but often trips us up. Perfectionism. Why is striving for perfection such a big driver of self-sabotage? It feels like a paradox.
It really does. But unhealthy perfectionism isn't about healthy striving. It's an all-or-nothing trap. Either the outcome is absolutely flawless, or it's a complete failure in your mind.
No middle ground.
None. And that impossible standard leads to paralysis. Either you never start because you're waiting for everything to be perfect, or you get stuck endlessly tweaking, never finishing because it's never quite good enough.
Churchill had a quote about that, right?
He did. Something like, nothing avails but perfection, maybe spelled shorter, paralysis. It just freezes you. Think about the entrepreneur who never launches because the website isn't perfect, or the student endlessly editing a paper, missing the deadline, or the person starting a fitness routine who eats one cookie and thinks, well, I've ruined it all, and just gives up entirely.
That all or nothing thinking, it links to shame too, doesn't it? If you can't be perfect, you feel like a failure and just quit.
Exactly. It actively sabotages progress because it doesn't allow for learning, mistakes, or just being human.
So what's the antidote? The Stoics must have had something refreshing to say about this.
They did. They talked about eros, which translates roughly to excellence or virtue. But for them, it was a process, a continuous effort, constant progress, not some static, flawless endpoint.
So it's about the striving, not arriving perfectly.
Precisely. Epictetus says something like, we don't abandon our pursuits because we despair of ever perfecting them. You keep going because improvement is the goal, not impossible perfection. Marcus Aurelius told himself, don't await the perfection of Plato's Republic. Basically, don't wait for ideal conditions, just act.
That connects to Carol Dweck's growth mindset idea today, doesn't it? Focus on learning and getting better, not just looking perfect.
Absolutely. So practically, how do you break free? First, shift from perfection goals to effort or process goals. Instead of write the perfect chapter, aim for work with full focus for 2 hours on this chapter. Focus on what you control, your effort.
Okay, control the input, not just the output.
Yes. You could also set minimum targets alongside ideal ones. If your ideal is exercising 5 days a week, maybe your minimum acceptable is 2. Hitting 3 feels like a win, not a failure for missing 5. It breaks the all-or-nothing cycle.
That's smart. What else?
Time box tasks. Give yourself a set amount of time, say 2 hours for a draft, and then stop. Except good enough for now. And get feedback earlier. Perfectionists hide their work until it's perfect.
Which means they miss chances to course correct or get valuable input.
Exactly. Steve Jobs famously pushed the idea, real artists ship. Interestingly, his own early perfectionism got him kicked out of Apple initially. Later, he became more pragmatic about shipping good enough products, iterating, and that led to massive success. He learned to balance vision with practicality.
Wow, that's a powerful example.
And finally, practice self-compassion. Dr. Kristen Neff's research is huge here. Being kind to yourself when you mess up, treating yourself like you'd treat a friend, actually builds resilience. It helps you get back up, whereas harsh self-criticism just keeps you down.
That's such an important point. Okay, let's shift to that inner critic again. That feeling maybe after you have achieved something that you're still a fraud, that you're going to be found out.
Ah, yes, imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
It's a specific kind of self-doubt where you chalk up your successes to luck or timing and live in fear of being exposed as incompetent.
And it's surprisingly common, right? Even among really successful people.
Incredibly common. Studies suggest maybe 70% of adults feel it at some point. Ironically, it often hits high achievers the hardest because they have such high internal standards. But beyond that specific syndrome, there's just general self-doubt, those core beliefs like I'm not smart enough, I'm not capable. These can become self-fulfilling prophecies.
How so?
Well, if you deeply believe you're unworthy of, say, a promotion, you might unconsciously do things to undermine yourself during the process. You might underperform just enough to confirm your own negative belief.
It's amazing how powerful that internal narrative can be. So how do we start to challenge it? How do we quiet that inner critic?
The Stoics offered great tools. First, question your impressions. Epictetus taught this. When a thought like, I'm going to fail this presentation pops up, pause. Say to yourself, okay, that's just an impression. It's not necessarily reality. Then examine it. Is it based on actual evidence or just fear?
That sounds a lot like cognitive behavioral therapy, disputing those automatic negative thoughts.
Very similar principle, yes. Challenge the thought's validity. Second, Stoic approach. Shift focus from yourself to your purpose. Marcus Aurelius often wrote about just doing the work, doing the right thing, and letting go of worrying about how you appear.
So focus on the task or helping others rather than constantly grading your own performance.
Exactly. If your goal is to contribute something valuable, it takes the pressure off needing to be personally perfect. Your energy goes into the work, not self-evaluation.
Okay, and what about modern techniques?
They build on this. Actively recall past successes. People with self-doubt tend to dismiss their achievements. Make a list. Seeing concrete evidence of your competence helps counteract the negative bias. Seek support and perspective. Talk to trusted friends or mentors. Hearing their view can be a reality check. Even reading biographies helps realizing that immensely successful people, like Maya Angelou, admitted to feeling like frauds can normalize the feeling.
That's comforting, actually.
It is. Also, cognitive restructuring. Deliberately replacing negative self-talk with more balanced, constructive thoughts. Not just empty positive affirmations, but realistic ones like, this is challenging, but I've handled challenges before. I can learn this. And again, self-compassion. Dr. Neff's work on treating yourself with kindness, recognizing your struggles are part of being human, and mindfully observing negative thoughts without getting lost in them. Howard Schultz, former Starbucks CEO, spoke openly about his imposter syndrome, his coping, focusing on the mission, building a strong team, and admitting what he didn't know. Really powerful strategies. Okay, next saboteur, those runaway emotions. anger, anxiety, impulse, when feelings just override reason and lead to regret.
Oh, yeah, a huge one. We've all been there, right? Snapping at someone and damaging a relationship or making an impulsive purchase we can't afford. That's emotional reactivity, reacting on impulse instead of responding thoughtfully.
The Stoics called these passions, didn't they, and saw them as dangerous. Very dangerous. Seneca wrote that anger is like a falling rock, which breaks itself to pieces upon what it crashes. It often harms the angry person the most. Modern research absolutely confirms that poor emotional regulation leads to all sorts of self-defeating behaviors.
You mentioned Alexander the Great.
A dramatic example, yes. He killed his close general Clytus in a drunken rage during an argument. The next day, filled with remorse, Alexander was apparently devastated. It shows how one moment of unchecked emotion can have catastrophic, irreversible consequences. On a smaller scale, maybe a temper flare loses you a client, or an anxiety-driven decision makes you avoid a great opportunity.
Okay, so this raises the crucial question. How do we stop these emotional storms from wrecking our progress?
The Stoics were really pioneers in emotional regulation techniques. A core one is the Stoic delay. Epictetus advised simply taking a moment before reacting. Seneca called delay the greatest remedy for anger.
Just pause.
Just pause.
Yeah.
Even for a few seconds. That brief gap allows the more rational part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, to catch up with the emotional impulse from the amygdala. Neuroscience backs this up completely. Take 5 deep breaths, count to 10. It works.
Simple but effective. What else?
Cognitive reframing. Marcus Aurelius had constantly coached himself not to let external events provoke anger by changing his interpretation. He'd remind himself that things themselves aren't upsetting, it's our judgment about them. So if someone cuts you off in traffic, instead of thinking, that idiot disrespected me, you could reframe it as, maybe they're rushing to an emergency. It instantly diffuses the anger.
Changing the story you tell yourself about the event.
Exactly. And also focus on the consequences. Seneca urged considering the fallout before acting on impulse. Ask yourself, if I send this angry email, what will happen next? Is it worth it? Visualizing the negative domino effect can strengthen your resolve to stay calm.
And modern psychology adds more tools.
Yes. Things like distress-tolerant skills from dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, like holding ice or splashing cold water on your face to break an intense emotional wave. Then, problem solving once you're calm. Use the emotion as information. Okay, I'm angry because my boundary was crossed, and then figure out a constructive way to address it. Building overall emotional resilience through regular habits like meditation, journaling, exercise, good sleep. These all help. And importantly, if emotions feel consistently overwhelming, seeking professional help like CBT or DBT is a sign of strength, not weakness. Even the Stoics valued mentors and guidance.
That's a really important point about seeking help. Okay, now for maybe the most surprising saboteur, our own ego, especially when things are going well.
Yes, success can ironically breed its own form of sabotage through ego. Here, ego means that inflated sense of self-importance, excessive pride, or stubbornness that blinds us to reality or feedback.
Ryan Holiday talks about this, right? Ego is the enemy.
Exactly. Ego can make you refuse to prepare properly because you think you're too smart. It can make you unable to apologize, damaging relationships. It can lead to entitlement or complacency. History and even recent news are full of examples of talented people falling from grace because their ego ran unchecked.
It's fascinating that the Stoics, even powerful figures like an emperor, were so aware of this specific trap.
They were deeply aware. They constantly advocated for humility and rigorous self-scrutiny, even at the height of power. Marcus Aurelius famously reminded himself to be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. He used practices like memento mori, reflecting on his own mortality, to keep his ego in check.
Remembering you're mortal kind of puts things in perspective.
It does. And Epictetus, who had been a slave, warned against getting puffed up by external advantages, wealth, status, because they're fragile and not core to your character. We talked about Steve Jobs earlier. His early ego arguably led to his ousting. When he came back to Apple, reports suggest he learned a degree of humility. He was still driven, still visionary, but better able to listen, collaborate, and admit fault. That combination of, as one study put it, high narcissism and high humility fueled Apple's incredible resurgence.
So ego isn't necessarily all bad, but unchecked ego is disastrous. How do we practice keeping it in check?
A few key practices. Adopt a learner's mindset. Always be willing to learn, ask questions, seek feedback, especially from people who might disagree with you. Think of Socrates, who was considered wise precisely because he recognized how much he didn't know. Remember your core values and purpose. Ego chases external validation looking good. Stoicism focuses on internal virtue being good. If your goal is true excellence, you welcome feedback that helps you improve rather than defending your pride.
That shifts the focus outward or inward to character rather than just self-image.
Exactly. Use perspective shifts, like Marcus Aurelius's view from above. Meditation, imagining yourself looking down on the world from space, seeing how small your own concerns are in the grand scheme. Also, attribute credit generously to others. It curbs your own ego and builds stronger teams. And practice humility deliberately. Small things. Admit when you're wrong quickly. Spend time with people who challenge you or aren't impressed by your status. Do anonymous acts of service. Research actually shows humble leaders are more effective and respected long term.
Okay, we've covered a lot. Fear, procrastination, perfectionism, self-doubt, emotional reactivity, ego. So pulling it all together, what does this mean for you listening right now? How do we take all these insights and actually break the cycle?
It really comes down to integrating these ideas into ongoing practice. It's not about finding one magic bullet, but more about cultivating um, a cluster of related skills. Things like one, radical self-awareness. Like the Stoic daily review, start noticing when and why you sabotage yourself. Keep a journal. Identify your triggers. Two, actively challenge your inner critic and those distorted thoughts. Train yourself to spot them and counter them with reason, like a good CBT exercise.
Okay.
Three, focus relentlessly on what you can control: your effort, your choices, your mindset, and try to accept what you can't, like outcomes or other people's opinions. That internal locus of control is key. Four, break big goals into tiny, manageable steps. Embrace that incremental progress. Make it easy to start and build momentum.
Like tiny habits.
Exactly. Five, develop healthy habits and routines. Good sleep, movement, focused work blocks. These reduce your reliance on sheer willpower, which is finite. Design your environment for success. Six, have go-to techniques for emotional regulation. Deep breathing, the Stoic pause, maybe a specific DBT skill, something you can use in the heat of the moment.
Right, having a plan beforehand.
Yes. Seven, seek accountability and support. Tell a friend your goal. Hire a coach. Talk to a therapist. Share your struggles. It reduces their power. And eight, perhaps most importantly, cultivate self-compassion. Treat yourself with kindness when you slip up. It prevents shame spirals and builds the resilience to get back on track.
That's a fantastic summary. And the core message here, the really empowering truth, is that you are not powerless in this. You absolutely control your mindset, your effort, how you interpret things, the same mind that maybe tripped you up before. That's the tool that can lift you higher now.
Absolutely. Imagine looking back, say, a year from now. Maybe procrastination has genuinely shifted towards productivity. Maybe fear feels less like a barrier and more like
Yeah.
information, something to navigate as you learn. Maybe your temper is calmer, your relationship stronger. You might be stepping into opportunities you used to shy away from because self-doubt isn't running the show anymore. And crucially, you'll probably find you enjoy the whole process more because you're not fighting yourself constantly.
It's about harmony, not perfection.
That's it, exactly. Self-mastery is about inner harmony.
And I love that Stoic idea. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. You will stumble, that's part of it. The real goal is just to pick yourself up one more time than you fall down.
So the challenge is,
Yeah.
start now. Don't wait. Take just one idea, one strategy from everything we've talked about and apply it today. Maybe it's just noticing your self-talk without judgment. Maybe it's using that stoic pause before reacting to an annoying email. Maybe it's breaking down one dreaded task into a tiny first step and doing just that. Or simply ending your day by acknowledging one thing you did well, however small. Every single action like that is like casting a vote for the kind of person you want to become. As Seneca urged, get busy with life's purpose, get active in your own rescue if you care for yourself at all.
That's a powerful call to action. Embrace it. This journey away from self-sabotage, it isn't always easy, but honestly, it's one of the most worthwhile things you can do. With these insights, with perseverance, you can absolutely move towards a life with more purpose, more resilience, and ultimately more genuine self-respect. Here's to your progress starting today.